So thank you everybody that's coming today. I can't believe how many senior women are in this room. I'm a bit worried about our insurance. We'd not be allowed on the plane together, that is sure. Possibly because the bar would disappear very quickly. I think the reason why we've got so many women in this room is a testament to our fantastic keynote speaker, Sam, and also our lovely panel, who are going to speak to us really about how we are going to be able to bring women through our workforce. It's no surprise to anybody that as you go through our organisations, women disappear as we get to the top, and it's almost death by 1,000 cuts. There are lots of reasons why that happens, and it seems tragic to me that we spend so much money training people and getting them to a position where they've got all these fantastic skills and then they disappear. So really, what I would really like to get out of today is some direction really from all of you, from Sam, from the panel, about actually how we start that happening, particularly as we've all got resource issues in our organisations, but also because we want to keep this talent. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Sam. Sam was an original founder and CEO of ThinkCap, which is now Cavendish. She was the first female CEO of a city stockbroking firm, and alongside this today, she's the #1 best-selling author. Sam's a champion of entrepreneurship and is trying to get it integrated into the school's curriculum. She's also been working with the government about how we can bring women through. So, Sam, would you mind just starting by giving us really a little bit of detail about your background and then on to some of the challenges that you found and how we can make life easier for the women coming through in our teams?
Okay, perfect. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you. So, and happy just the day before International Women's Day as well. It's getting exciting. So I'm Sam Smith. I'm the founder and the former CEO of a business called ThinkCap. And I thought I'd just give you a little sort of 5-minute history of what that was all about. So I qualified as a chartered accountant at KPMG. And towards the end of that, the normal process is to chat to a recruiter and sort of go into corporate finance in a big investment bank or to go and be an analyst in a research house. And so I was in the interview process of chatting to all those people about all these exciting jobs and what I might do age 23. And at the same time, two things happened. One was I was starting to realise I didn't really like processes, and I was getting quite annoyed with just having to conform and no one listening and no one really wanting to change the status quo. Plus, at the same time, my very good friend who I live with, age 23, got breast cancer. And thankfully, she's fine today. But I wanted to go and see her in hospital, and there was a bit of a problem about me going. So I decided from that day, do you know what? I'm not going to stay at work. I'm going to go and see my friend. And whatever I do next, I'm not going to let that happen to me or anyone else who works for me ever again. So that was quite a defining moment for me about how I wanted to work myself and how I wanted to build a team. So I turned down all the other jobs. Everyone thought I was bonkers and went for this interview at what was quite an unknown wealth manager at the time called JM Finn, with a couple of £1 billion under management, and they wanted to set up this brand new corporate finance division. So I rock up, age 23, not really sure what the job is, not really sure what I'm doing, but I got on really well with the guy who was very, very supportive of women. He actually had recruited the first jobber onto the stock exchange floor when it was all open outcry. And I started. So the next month I joined, it was literally a desk and a phone and me. And it was almost like carry on corporate finance. It was, right, how do I play to business? How do I do this? What are the rules? Ordered all the books, read all the books. And fairly quickly I realised, you know what, this process of floating a company or raising money for a company, raising them debt, getting all that sort of technical stuff done is not really in the documentation, because the corporates don't really think in the morning, what's going on here? How do I do this document? How do I do this structure? What they really cared about was, oh my God, I'm going through quite a life-changing process. I might lose control. This is changing to me and my business. They want someone to empathise with them. And I realised there was a gap in the market for a firm that really cared about those SMEs differently to everybody else. So I sort of got on with building my division, grew it to sort of 10 people over the next 7 or 8 years. We did no marketing, head down, just kept raising money for people. And then after that 7 years, we said, look, we've paid off most of the partners' loans. We've made a lot of profit within our division. We were doing really well. We got more and more clients with no marketing spend whatsoever. Thought, actually, we really want to keep growing this now. And we had to put a large amount of money, £500,000 in, to make that division become something meaningful. And we had to become what was called a nomad, which was a nominated advisor on the London stock market. So at that point, invested £500,000, but said, look, if we're going to do this out of our own P&L, you need to give us some equity. They refused. They said no, they wouldn't give me equity in Topco. But actually, we started to then negotiate about a management buyout. 3 years that took, and it was quite difficult to get that achieved. But on August 2007, we did manage to achieve a buyout. So 10 years running that division, I then became the CEO of what we decided to call FinCap. So we span out. We were 50% owned by our parent company. We were on our own. We were about 3 million turnover, and we were about 25 people. And that was really our mark to say, right, I'm now the CEO. We're now completely alone. What is our USP? And our USP became culture. It became, we want to treat our clients differently, and we want to treat our people differently. And we really want to stand for inclusion, for fairness, for a different way of working in financial services. And we want to break that culture down and show that you can make just as good returns, but also treating people really well. So the next 10 years, it was really fast track growth. We got everyone involved in the equity. We had a vision. We wanted to be the leader in the SME space by treating clients really differently. We wanted to have a different culture. And our growth, we went through the financial crisis, some difficulties, but over the next 10 years, we managed to take that business from 3 million turnover to over 50 million turnover, with some bumps in the road. I think the biggest turning point was probably after 20 years. Actually, it was 20 years of organic growth with very little capital raised. At that 20-year point, we said, we've got 5% market share. We really want to scale up. How do we do it? We probably can get to 10% market share, but not beyond that. And that was the realization that we had to take a risk at that point and buy something else. So 20 years, it was organic growth. After 20 years, I finally was ready for an acquisition, which was pretty scary. But we bought a business called Cavendish Corporate Finance, which was a leading M&A house, selling lots of entrepreneurial businesses globally. We bought that, and at the same time IPO'd ourselves as a combination onto the London stock market in 2018. So roll on to September 22, I stepped back as CEO after building that business to sort of 160 people, a market leading financial services business. And really my last 18 months has been about working with businesses, championing entrepreneurship, promoting inclusive culture, promoting women in business and all underrepresented groups, and trying to champion really a different way of working and promoting empathetic leadership. So that's a little bit about me and my journey.
Corporate finance obviously is one of the areas where there are very scant women. In your organisation, when you said you were promoting culture and trying to do things in a different way, what was the sort of demographic of women in your team, and how did you keep those women in the organisation and for them to be able to juggle all the things that they juggle, as well as what is quite a demanding job?
So I think the interesting thing, I never monitor stats, and actually I know you need to monitor stats. What gets measured gets done, but I'd never monitored it for probably 15 years. But what was happening, because I was standing for something different, and actually it took me a while, we can talk about that later, to be my authentic self. But after a couple of years of thinking I needed to be like the blokes, once I was me, actually we were different. I was leading it from the top, and what we used to find is women would just start joining us. So we promoted this culture. It wasn't just about women, it was about inclusion. So I think that's really important. It was about everyone bringing their true self to work, listening to everybody, making sure they're an equity owner, even in a tiny way, making sure their voice is heard, really understanding and hearing what the issues are about, you know, any group, why they feel included, how you can promote people. So it was a very, very intense people-based culture of listening, openness. Everyone could talk to me. You know, it was a very flat structure. And by doing that culture differently, which was completely different in our space and probably still is, but at the beginning, absolutely different, we just started to attract different people. So what happened, if you roll on to 20, 24 years, by the time I left, if you had a pitch from our team, say 5 people in a room, pitching to a corporate client and a competitor or a number of competitors, our team would look quite different. So there would be women in it. There would be people from different ethnic backgrounds. There would be people from different social backgrounds. But everyone would be talking about the same vision. They'd be talking about the client. They cared about the client. They'd love their job. And that was really obvious from the moment you walked in the door. So we got up to 40% women across the business after about 10, 15 years. And that started off at about 10% women. So we'd moved, by the time I'd monitored the stats, we'd already got to our 40% females, going, God, that's actually quite a lot. And then everyone would start asking us, other banks, I had to go and talk to the very big investment banks about how have you done this? And that's when you think, well, we weren't actually setting out to do this. What we were doing was just doing the right thing. We were just treating people properly, creating a really nice culture, making sure we listened to people, making sure we adapted, making sure we were flexible. So that's why I'm so keen to just champion everyone needs to be involved. This isn't a women's game, and this, you know, to sort out all the problems for ourselves. The theme this year for International Women's Day is inspire inclusion. And we need everyone on board to understand, look, that the issues from certain groups, and particularly women, are different. How women see things is different. And what I think I could do is see it from their point of view when other bosses maybe couldn't see it from that point of view. So I think this is all about an understanding, listening, realizing that everyone's different and different groups see things differently and need to be treated in a flexible way.
One of the things that you mentioned there is about being authentic, but when women are coming into the workplace at a young age, I think there is a barrier to that. They think that they need to act and speak in a certain way. So how do you allow those young women to have a voice? You know, what do you do other than be authentic?
Well, I think just to tell you a little story, you know, when I took on the CEO position, I was 33 by this point, so I was still young, and I was the only female in my sector that was leading a business. So again, I didn't think that was odd because I'd always been one of the only females in accounting and financial services. So I didn't find that a problem. But what happened was I started to meet all the different CEOs from my industry, thinking, okay, how do I do it? I don't know what I'm doing. It's a learn on the job thing. I'd meet them all, great people, but I'd start to quite subconsciously turn myself into them. So if you roll on 2 years, what happened is I was starting dressing differently, was starting to wear, you know, trouser suits, get a bit tougher, you know, look a bit less feminine, wouldn't wear makeup, wouldn't, you know, do anything with my hair, wouldn't wear any feminine clothes. I'd start becoming quite masculine, until one person said to me one day after 2 years, gosh, you're quite cold. And I thought, oh, that isn't very good, because I am the opposite of cold. You know, my whole style of leadership is about being real, about being human, about sort of championing a different way. You don't have to do it. You know, this ball breaker thing is not a real thing. Actually, the way women lead is a really good way to lead. So I had to look myself in the mirror and say, actually, what has happened to me? This has subconsciously happened. From that moment on, it was like ditched all the trouser suits, started to wear colour, started to really, you know, work on what feminine power is and why that's so different. But you do feel very outnumbered. And I think, you know, for me, I've always had the inner confidence to be able to do that, because I believed in the cause that creating a different culture is important. And I've had that sort of belief that I need to do it. But not everybody does. And I think if there were more male role models for me to look at, more female role models for me to look at, people doing it differently, more authentically. I would have been my authentic self from day one, and I wouldn't have spent those 2 years of going down the wrong path, and actually could have continued for 20 years feeling like I needed to be like the guys. So I think authenticity is the most important thing, the trusting your gut, the being yourself. And the system doesn't necessarily work so well for us all at the moment. So we sort of have to champion change, but that's okay. I think as long as we're being ourselves, we're doing it our own way, we're encouraging people in a very positive, inclusive way to understand where we're coming from, we can create something different. And I think women have a huge amount to offer to the economy in really working out what empathetic leadership is, because it is where it's going. You know, the old style of leadership, when you see things like, you know, The Apprentice and Dragon's Den style, it's not really how it is and how it should be. And I know, you know, we're all in the SME community. It's run by people who really care about what they're doing, care about their communities, are all individuals, and their quirks and their differences are what makes them lead and what makes them inspire people. So if you want to go up in your career, you know, if you are a business person, wants to scale your business, I think the best thing you can do is find your own voice, be absolutely true to that, and use that as your super scalability.
Brilliant. So just before Sam leaves, has anybody got a question for Sam that we'd like to, well, we've got the opportunity? No? No. To be honest, Sam, I think you've covered it all. I really appreciate you taking the time with us today. Obviously, if you want to stay on, we're going to move to the panel now. So if you want to chip in, please do.
Okay. Thank you.
But thank you so much. So such an inspiring story, and so true about being yourself, really. And that I'm a believer that clients are quite smart. So if you try and be somebody that you're not, they can see through you. So it doesn't surprise me that your experience was different, because you were being yourself, that actually they thought, I want to buy these people, I want to be involved in these people. So thank you, Sam. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
Hi everyone, my name's Kate Rothwell. I'm Group Head of Tax at the Pebble Group. Yeah, a lot of what was said before really resonates with me. I think, you know, when I look about when I started my career in tax many years ago, definitely there was a perception that you had to fit into a certain mould. And I think as I've got older, have more plates spinning, become a parent, it's exhausting pretending to be something that you're not, I think is what I would say. And I really encourage, enforce, you know, that actually it's really important to be yourself. You know, our uniqueness is what builds really great, strong teams, and actually is probably what your clients, your boss, your wider business is looking for. So for me, you know, I completely agree with everything that's been said, that, you know, just be yourself. For me, pretending was exhausting, and yeah.
Some of that is about all the juggle that we do, isn't it? The fact that actually, I remember somebody saying, you know, you can have it all. And actually, I don't want it all. It's too tiring. There's not enough time in the day for you to have it all. And obviously, Jenny, one of the things that you will have come into contact with quite a bit is mums juggling all the time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I actually agree with you that you can have it all, but quite everything will be a bit average because you're trying to have too much. And I always talk about juggling balls, and I used to regularly drop balls. I'm dropping balls today by being here. There's things I could be doing elsewhere that I've chose not to do. But I used to feel really bad about it and talk to myself about dropping balls. And now what I say is I've decided to put that ball down today and either delegate it to somebody else or just not do it. And I think it is a real shift in mindset of recognising that we can't have everything all the time. And I think any woman that sort of stands up or sits down as we are today and makes it sound easy and makes it sound like they've got it all in hand, they're doing a disservice to everybody listening, and they're not being truthful, because I've never yet met a woman that has got it all in hand. We typically quite stressed, overstretching ourselves, and I think the more authentic and honest we are about the challenges, Not painting it to be miserable and dire, because otherwise that doesn't help us either. We want to try and inspire and lift each other, but also not make it look easy when we know it's not.
Yeah.
That's just a personal view, but we're not dropping balls, we're placing them down. Pick them back up later.
There's obviously a different style as well that I found with women in business than men in business, and this is something obviously that you and I spoke about, Katy. You obviously have founded a business at quite a young age with two men, and we discussed how your approach is obviously different from theirs.
Yeah, 100%. I think it all started, when we decided to launch the business, because it's very not me to launch a business. It is very off-brand. And I think the boys were a lot more happy to take a risk than I was. I needed a spreadsheet of every possible thing that could go wrong and what my plan was to fix that. And then also, and how was the team going to take the news, and how was our CEO going to take the news, and what if everyone thinks I'm a horrible person for leaving the business? And I am quite people motivated, and people, I really do spend a lot of time with people and teams and that kind of stuff. So I think that contrast was huge right at the beginning, and the way the boys handled it, it's going to be fine. I was like, okay. And then I think that has, continued throughout it, and the self-confidence of them versus me has been quite a big thing. Even though I am confident, I think just the outward confidence of them versus me has been something I've definitely dealt with.
Something that I hear a lot with women in senior positions is about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
The fact that actually I'm not good enough, or I've been lucky to get here, rather than actually I've worked really hard to get here.
Yeah.
And I think that's the mindset that's slightly different, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I hope you won't mind me saying it, but one of my co-founders was like, I just woke up one day and said, I'm a triple threat, and I was like, what?
I don't even know what that means.
Just do it all. I was like, what?
It's always every day. I am amazing.
Yeah.
I'm amazing.
He's like, I'm so confident. I was like, okay.
One of the things, Milli, that you and I spoke about is how women disappear through the workforce, and it is a constant stream of talent coming out of the door. Obviously, you champion women's wellness in the workplace, and actually for them to know themselves better in order to be able to manage some of these things better. So tell me a little bit about the work that you do to try and retain people, women, really advise them about how they stay in work.
Okay, so thank you for having me today, everyone. So my name's Milli, I'm a GP, I'm an educator at Lancaster University, and my passion is on hormonal health and how we can utilise and work with our hormones so we're not working against them, and that's what I'm hugely passionate about. I think the biggest challenge is I don't think women are educated or aware enough about their own hormones. You've got to this age, and if I was to ask one of you to put your hands up and tell me what a hormone is, you'd probably have to think about that a little bit more than you probably should. And I think the problem is that we're seeing, like you said, there's 1 in 10 women leaving the workplace because of the menopause transition. They are struggling. 75% of women suffer with menopause symptoms, 25% of them are severe, and it's causing 40% of people to not function in their role. But we know, I think the problem is that we are wired and we are different to men. You've all said how the imposter syndrome, all of these confidence issues, why do we get that? And understanding why our hormones make us feel like that is one of the crucial aspects. I've got lived experience of multiple hormonal problems throughout my career, and that's what's kind of driven me to want to kind of push this forward, because I see so many women in the workplace as a GP coming to see me, spinning, so not the balls but plates. Yeah. So I want to place my plates on the floor, but they're coming in with that perfect storm, they're in the midlife where they've got a family, struggling, perhaps even a divorce because of hormonal issues. They've got the children, they're in a busy workplace, and they are struggling, and they are trying to do it all. And I think it's actually explaining to them why they're feeling the way they're feeling. Do they need hormone replacement? What is it they can do in that workplace to help? One of the strategies I use is in the 2 weeks before my period, I do not respond volatile with emails, because I need to calm down and think about these things. But it's taken me quite a lot of years to understand that. I've left lots of jobs. I've been one of those women who have left the workplace because I felt very unsupported. And one of the biggest things for me is actually having that conversation. We need to open up that narrative and actually speak about it. It's not because we're feeling hormonal. We need to that narrative there about why we're feeling the way we are, how our hormones impact our brain health, why are we functioning the way we are is absolutely crucial, because we can make our hormones work for us.
We've got a problem, obviously, with women will leave the workplace because they're feeling all of those things. And obviously, it's not just about the menopause, it's about pregnancy, having a baby, coming back, you know, all of these things, or these sort of obstacles. But once you leave, it's very difficult then to get back in because your confidence has gone. And it's then having people around you. And Jenny, you and I spoke about this very briefly, is support networks are everything. You know, I genuinely don't think that I could do my job without my husband. You know, my family aren't close, so we rely on each other to sort of throw things at. Oh, I've got to do this. I've got, you know, if I didn't have that, I would not be able to be I wouldn't be standing here today. So, Kate, if I can just come back to you to just say, you know, those support networks. What, as you have come through, you know, as you've got to the position that you have got to, what are the things that you think have made you able to do that?
So I definitely agree around, you know, having, I suppose, a supporting spouse or partner. I think it's really, really important. And let's be honest, it's still really hard, you know, as women, you know, the majority of us, you know, are primary caregivers, you know, you're not only trying to like manage your kind of your work and your team, but also your family and your home. And my husband will be quite open and honest about, like, you know who's responsible for organising a birthday party or picking up a birthday card. That kind of falls to us. So that is changing, I think, but that's a generation thing. You know, that's probably not going to change significantly for, sadly, most people in this room. I could talk for hours about, well, how we can bring up our boys and our girls to kind of, impact that change, but that's probably for another day. So, and then you for me, it's about looking to your wider community. So one of the things that I did as part of, looking at the team that when I was at AO, so we'd just come out of COVID. And it was really, really clear to me that, you know, the women, there was 3 of us in the team, so there was 2 ladies beneath me, and their kind of like only exposure to a female leader was really me, and my way of leading is not the only way. So one of the things that I did was we kind of restarted the Northern Women in Chats community. And that's an informal group of women. We come together perhaps once a month. We don't do tax things, we do fun things. And off the back of that, apparently not. I get told anyway. And that's built a community of women that support each other. You know, not just through returning to work. So you've got peers, but you've got people that are going through perimenopause. You know, so we've come together, and yes, that has meant that I've got another plate to spin. But for me, it was really important because actually, I'm very similar to you, Lisa. I haven't got family that's close. So although those women perhaps can't help with pickups and things, what they are at the end of like a WhatsApp or an email when you're like, oh my God, well, I'm going to be really honest, I'm going through an audit and I'm sat in the toilet crying my eyes out because something's gone horribly wrong and I don't know how I'm going to fix it. Being able to message someone and they're like, you'll fix it, you've got this, go and smash it is really, really important. So, sounds really corny, it does take a village. The other thing that I think I'm really passionate about is about parenting loudly. So, I'm really honest about what my non-negotiable boundaries are. So, as an example, tomorrow my children are swimming in a swimming gala for school. They only do it twice a year. And I volunteered. It's absolutely the wrong time of year for me to be doing that, but it is really important for me to do that. And I'm lucky that, I've joined a firm that supports that and understands that, I'll get the job done. It just might not be tomorrow. It might be that I pick stuff up at the weekend. So I suppose that, I don't know if that's helpful or not.
No, well, I saw that Jenny was nodding her head when you mentioned the words parenting loudly.
I love that. Yeah. And I agree with you completely. It's all part of being real about the challenges. So when we leave to go to sports day or we leave to do whatever we've decided or take our child to the doctor, whatever it might be, we say that's what we're doing instead of saying, oh, I've got a meeting in Manchester and making it, you know, papering over the cranks. I do think, sadly, the supportive partner thing, I know loads of female leaders and female CEOs, and nearly all of us are divorced. I think it's really hard to keep your fella or your partner and do well. And I have met somebody else, so I'm a statistic of that, but I have met somebody else that's different, and we talk a lot about sharing the mental load. And your birthday party one again made me smile, because there's a difference between a partner that'll grumpily go and buy a present because you've said, can you really help me, I've not got time, or one that says, I tell you what, don't even give that party another thought, I'll take care of getting there, wrapping the present, buying the present, whatever, you know, the whole mental load of a task, as opposed to begrudgingly that little bit. And I think that the right partner, male or female, can genuinely make all the difference in the world. My PA's just messaged me today and said, Jenny, it's usually such a stress you go into a morning thing, because I wouldn't have had the support and help I need to make it happen, and today I have. And I've got a smile on my face because I'm not feeling guilty about being here, because somebody else has just said, I can help you with that bit. And I know there are single women out there that don't have that support. And I don't know how they do it, to be perfectly honest. But I know that they do, and I know they're smashing it. And but they're probably also not sleeping much and looking a bit bedraggled and not quite putting themselves first.
Yeah, absolutely. Katy, you're obviously a lot younger than me. Lucky you. So, what are your support networks?
Yes, I'm 30. My boyfriend, but as well friends and ex-colleagues actually have been really helpful, and I think that has been, actually I've been thinking about it a lot this week, that I have missed, having a female ex-colleague that I really rely on. She's amazing, and I used to work with her, and now I don't have that, and now the only girls that I work with are people that I employ. So it is a bit of a different dynamic now, and I'm like, oh God, I actually don't, like, I feel quite lonely almost. So I have been really relying on ex-colleagues. Events like this are so great, and I wish there was more of them. Like, I'm on the hunt for female founders to like make friends with and talk to, because it is different. And kind of what you said, like, I texted a female founder that I'm friends with. They're just like, oh my God, I just had this really awful conversation with one of my employees, and what should I do? And she just was like, it's okay, this is what you should do. And it was just really, really nice just to speak to someone and not have to put on a kind of professional front almost and speak to them like a friend. So I think the more of this, the better. It's amazing.
One of the things that Sam mentioned was actually if she had had more women at the top, that actually she would have been more inspired. It actually, and it comes back to what you said as well, Jenny, which is, let's not pretend that we're all super women. At the end of the day, we all want to go to the Christmas Carol concert at the school. Sometimes.
The singing can be a bit different, to be fair.
But you know, there are things that we want to do. We want to have a relationship with our children. You know, so we don't get to a point in time where we're regretting the amount of time that we've spent at work. And actually, that can be very difficult. And also, it leads to extra stress, Milli, in terms of that guilt of. So you've got a lack of confidence on one side, and then you've got, oh, I'm doing all these things, but actually now I feel guilty about all the things that I'm doing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, psychological impact can affect how you're feeling, and people, like you said earlier, you know, it's not just the perimenopause, menopause, it's women who suffer with anything throughout their career, heavy periods, getting pregnant, coming back part-time, navigating that change of working part-time with the family and going back into work, navigating a divorce. You know, I'm a statistic as well in all of that. And I think what Sam said and what you've all said really is, you just need to be authentic. You will find your tribe when you're just open and honest and speak. And I think that's what we need to do. I had a conversation with work the other day and said, I'm not being heard, I'm not being listened to. And it was a very difficult conversation to have, but it needed to be said, because you become an adapted self. That authenticity principle is essential, and you have to do that, because you won't sleep, like you said, you know, it'll affect your mental health, that all affects your hormones, and it's just this vicious circle. And dropping, you know, putting balls down, and you know, and it all has an impact. So I think it's looking holistically at everyone. We're all individuals, we're all different, and I think it's having that network and support around you to champion you, because when women come together and support each other, you know, innovation and change is outstanding. So
it feels very powerful, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
What I'd just say is on that though, you know, if you're looking for a tribe or, you know, a group and you can't find one, set one up is what I would really encourage you to do, because, you know, there's someone that I used to work with, he always used to say, you know, if you get asked to dance, how often is it that you actually turn around and say no? And actually, if you put yourself out there and say, you know, do you know what, I want to find like-minded people that want to come and talk, people will come and they will kind of join. And I completely agree. When women come together, you know, we can do some really like amazing things, some fun things, not tax, don't worry. So, you know, I would really, really encourage you, you know, don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
Have we got any questions for the panel? Ladies.
I'd like to cover the biological side differently between men and women, because I also find we say this about men, we say about finding a partner that's going to be supportive, but maybe it's not that they're not supportive, they are just so different to us that what's important to them is just so very different. So for example, getting their mum's birthday card wouldn't happen if we didn't do it, not because they're selfish, but they're just not bothered. Whereas biologically women, you know, we have that.
Are you saying that inherently men are selfish? Biologically selfish.
The workplace might be different. Like they used to get their secretaries in the old days to buy their wife's presents or something. Maybe there is something that could be done within a workplace that would help mums to fulfil their role.
Yeah. I mean, really, like it's a lot easier now than it's ever been, I think. You know, but still, there's still things to do, isn't there? So if you had one piece of advice that you would give to somebody about, you know, if they're at the beginning of their career and, you know, they've got aspirations to go as far as they can, what bit of advice would you give them? I'll start with you, Katy.
Probably be authentic. I think we've talked about it a lot, because I think I have found myself changing myself to be the leader that I think I should be, rather than myself, because I'm quite an emotional person. I've always had feedback, you're an emotional leader, you're too emotional. And I'm like, is that a bad thing though? Like, why does that have to be such a negative piece of feedback? So I think being yourself and finding, you know, what makes you happy, the kind of career you want and the leader you want to be, and be that, and don't just be the person that you think you should be, because that's not always the best.
Jenny.
I think it's to just get outside your comfort zone and be brave. I remember very early on in my career, I was asked to go and network in a room. I was maybe 18, 19, and I was outside the room, and I remember shaking with adrenaline, thinking, I don't even know if I can walk in that room. And I did, and I found I was a bit of a natural, and I had an hour of great chat, and I was paid to chat to people, and I thought, oh, I can do that. But an hour ago, I didn't think I could. And it probably was quite career defining. I remember it very much as being, oh, I can do this. So just get outside your comfort zone and you'll be amazed what does become comfortable. I can't believe where my career's gone. I left school at 16 and I've ended up doing some really good things. But at 16 I didn't think I could do any of that, and it's only by getting uncomfortable or being comfortable being uncomfortable that I think I've done what I've done.
Okay, how do we encourage women coming through to be uncomfortable?
I do think it is it is leading by example. I think, you know, I think we've all being able to kind of look up and see, you know, good role models, people that you want to be like or emulate, I think is really, really powerful. I also think, you know, I always say to my team that my job is to put myself out of a job. And what I mean by that is if I'm bringing everyone up behind me so that they can do my job, they're then doing the same for the people kind of below it. So, you know, I'm a real advocate of like, you know, really, and clearly it's only if people want to, because not everyone wants to kind of be, and that's okay as well. So for me, it is about leading by example and being true to yourself and being honest. You know, not all firms sadly are in that place that will support you to do that. And it's about being brave and saying to yourself, well, actually, this isn't where I'm meant to be, and I'm going to kind of go and find the right place where I'm going to kind of excel and be able to bring people on.
So Milli, finally, how do we look after ourselves when we're doing that? Because obviously, as we've all said, you know, we're doing so many things at all different times. Actually, the thing that you neglect the most is probably yourself. So how do we ensure that? Actually, we're not doing that. How do we check in with ourselves to say, actually, am I okay?
No, I think for especially with women in business who are constantly rushing around, it is a big problem. You know, I'm an example of that. It's taken me 6 months to get a blood test. It's been waiting there for 6 months, they couldn't find it. So it's making sure you do that. Scheduling time out, and I know we talk about it and it sounds a bit woo-woo, but actually having that mindfulness time and time for yourself every day, 10 to 20 minutes doing something for yourself, going for a walk in green space, or just checking in with yourself and spending that on doing something you want to do. Not cooking dinner, doing everything for everyone else. Yes, we're all going to do that, but what is it that we can do, that we want to do, whether it's picking up a magazine and just reading it for 10, 15 minutes, a book, anything. What do you want to do for 10 to 15 minutes that will bring you some joy? And I think that will impact your hormones. It will release oxytocin. There are biological changes that happen that make you feel better from doing that. So it's thinking about yourself, prioritising yourself, schedule, put a Teams meeting in for yourself. It's all things you can do.
Yeah. Right, thank you. Oh, Sarah, I've got a question. Yeah.
I've got a question, because earlier on in the conversation, I think we were talking about spousal support and not sure how single women do it. I wonder if we could get Sam back online, because I think she has some experience of that.
Yeah, if we can, is she still there? Oh, Sam. Sam, did you hear that?
Yes, I
Sarah-
did. I've been listening.
Yeah, brilliant.
So I think, I mean, my story is something very personal, but when my daughter is now 10, and when she was 3.5, I split up with her dad. So I was in the middle of running my business and I became a single mum. And that was the same year, actually, that I IPO'd the business and acquired a business, and Aoife started a new school. So it was a humdinger of a year. But what I would say is, you know, I had an amazing coach, so I think that's really important to sort of help you through it. But support can come from anywhere. So for me, I had, you know, with a partner, wasn't actually feeling like that much support, but I had outside support. When I became a single parent, and I have been a single parent for the last 6 years, I have just got support from elsewhere, and actually being able to manage that support well has worked better for me. So I think having support around you, and for me that is practical support, but it's also emotional support and coaching, mentoring, things like that, to just make sure you can get through. But absolutely, you know, everything is possible with the right support network, and to give yourself a bit of a break when you need it, because, you know, it is difficult. And I think, you know, that's what I felt at ThinkOut. We needed to adapt to people's personal circumstances, and sometimes when you can't do it one day, you just can't do it, and that's that. But it's absolutely possible, and I say support comes from anywhere, and you just have to ask. I wasn't very good at asking, but now I'm much better.
Thanks, Sam, and thanks to the panel. Obviously, we've got a bit of time to wander around and possibly grab some of the, not literally, obviously, some of the panel members for you to have a conversation with them. But thank you so much for coming. I'd just like to say thanks to our panel.